The clinking of silverware and the murmur of polite conversation filled the room, but for Emma, every sound felt muffled, as though the world had shifted its axis without her notice. She had been anticipating this dinner for weeks, not for the food, not for the gathering, but for the fleeting hope that her parents might finally recognize her. Her achievements, her sacrifices, the late nights and endless work, all seemed invisible to them. Tonight, she thought, maybe they would see her. Maybe they would finally care. Her parents' eyes sparkled with excitement as they placed gifts on the table. There was laughter, teasing, the kind of warm family energy that should have made her heart flutter. Then her sister, Lily, opened her present, and the room collectively gasped. A deed to $450,000 property rested in her hands, shiny and official, like a trophy won before the starting gun had even sounded. Emma forced a smile, a polite "that's amazing, Lily," but inside, her stomach twisted into knots, and then it was her turn. A small envelope slid toward her. She opened it slowly, trying to savor the anticipation, trying to cling to a shred of hope. Inside, a gift card, a flimsy, insignificant token that screamed of thoughtlessness. Emma's fingers trembled as she held it, her knuckles white with barely contained fury. She wanted to laugh or cry or throw the card across the room. But she did none of those things. Instead, she tucked it away, forcing a nod of gratitude while her heart ached in silence. Her parents beamed at her, oblivious to the storm brewing behind her calm exterior. "We thought you'd like it," her mother said, her voice cheerful, unaware of the insult etched into every fiber of Emma's being. Emma nodded, her throat tight. She wanted to scream that she wasn't a child who could be placated with a token, that years of being overlooked and undervalued had a weight that could crush mountains. But she swallowed the words, knowing that raw honesty now would only make her humiliation complete. As dinner continued, Emma forced herself to participate in the laughter, to compliment the food, to ask about Lily's plans for the property. But every smile felt like it chipped away a piece of her, leaving her hollow and burning with a quiet rage. She remembered every time her accomplishments were minimized, every subtle preference her parents had shown for her sister, every moment she had tried to reach for acknowledgement and been met with indifference. Each memory added fuel to a fire she didn't yet fully understand she would let burn. And as she chewed her food carefully, watching the way her parents fussed over Lily, Emma felt something shift. The disappointment that had settled over her like a heavy blanket, it began to harden into determination. She would not remain invisible, she would not be dismissed. If her family refused to recognize her worth, she would find another way. Not today, perhaps, not tonight, but someday, when the opportunity presented itself, she would make them see. The fire in her chest wasn't just anger. It was a promise, quiet, simmering, and patient. And as she pushed her plate away, smiling politely while her mind raced with plans, Emma realized that this dinner, this cruelly unequal celebration, had given her something her parents never intended: purpose. After the dinner, Emma retreated to the sanctuary of her room, closing the door behind her like a shield against the world that had humiliated her. The envelope with the gift card lay forgotten on her desk, a symbol of everything she had endured. Her hands shook, not from sadness anymore, but from the slow, searing heat of resolve that had taken root in her chest. She had spent years watching her parents dote on Lily, defending her achievements and ignoring hers, and now the scales had finally tipped. But if tonight had taught her anything, it was that open confrontation would achieve nothing. No, she needed patience, precision, a plan. For the first time, Emma allowed herself to think like a strategist rather than a daughter. She studied her parents and her sister with a new intensity, paying attention to their habits, their patterns, their blind spots. How often did Lily talk about money? What banks did they use? How did her parents manage their investments? Every detail became a potential key, every casual remark a possible advantage. She realized that her anger could be a tool if wielded correctly, a sharp, silent weapon that would cut through the arrogance of her family. Days turned into weeks, and Emma perfected the art of appearing unaffected. She smiled at family gatherings, complimented Lily on her property, and even made jokes about the extravagance of the gift. Each gesture was carefully measured, a mask that hid the storm raging beneath. No one suspected the meticulous calculations behind her eyes, the way she memorized account details, legal procedures, and the subtle nuances of real estate law. Emma had discovered a hidden strength: patience, waiting, observing, and learning. She was not impulsive, she was preparing. Late at night, she would sit in front of her laptop, referencing property records, researching financial regulations, and mentally rehearsing every possible scenario. She imagined the look on her parents' faces when the tables turned, when their precious favoritism was challenged by the very person they had underestimated. A quiet thrill pulsed through her veins at the thought. It wasn't cruelty she sought, it was justice. Recognition, validation, the satisfaction of finally being seen as more than the overlooked daughter. Yet beneath the meticulous planning, there was also a deep, aching sadness. Emma mourned the family she had hoped for, the warmth and acknowledgement she had longed for since childhood. Every time she caught herself smiling politely while her parents gushed over Lily, a pang of grief reminded her that love had been conditional in her household. She grieved silently, burying her disappointment deep enough to fuel her cunning, transforming sorrow into strategy. By the end of the month, Emma felt a subtle shift in herself. The humiliation that had once threatened to consume her had transformed into quiet confidence. She knew the moment would come when she could act, when the careful observation, the endless research, and the simmering anger would align into one decisive opportunity. Until then, she would remain patient, invisible to their eyes but fully aware of their every weakness. And every night, as she closed her laptop and listened to the faint sounds of her family laughing downstairs, Emma whispered a silent promise to herself. They would never see it coming. Next family dinner arrived with all the pomp and cheer of the last, but Emma approached it differently this time. She sat at the table, carefully composed, her fork poised yet untouched, smiling politely at her parents and Lily. Each laugh, each boast about the property, each proud anecdote of Lily's success, felt like a small ember on the fire burning inside her. But this ember was no longer destructive. It was a spark of clarity, a signal that the moment for action was near. Emma had spent weeks mapping every detail of Lily's new property. Its legal documents, its mortgage, its insurance, even the tax records. She knew the bank handling the mortgage, the dates of payment, the clauses buried in small print that most people overlooked. Every family dinner, every casual remark from her parents about their finances had been logged in her mind, and now she held a precise advantage. She wasn't acting out of impulse. She was executing a plan meticulously crafted from months of observation. Halfway through the meal, as the aroma of roasted chicken and roasted potatoes mingled in the air, her mother leaned over to Lily, rhapsodizing about how proud she was of the property's investment potential. Emma's hands tightened around her fork, but she did not interrupt. She chewed slowly, masking her anticipation with the illusion of normalcy, her eyes betraying nothing. And then mid-bite, she excused herself, her smile perfectly polite. "Just a moment," she said softly, slipping from the table with the poise of someone entirely unremarkable. In the privacy of the hall, Emma pulled out her phone and dialed the bank. Her pulse raced not with fear, but with a controlled thrill. She was no longer the overlooked daughter, no longer the recipient of empty gestures. Tonight, she was a strategist, an architect of justice, quietly poised to rewrite the narrative of her family. As the call connected, she felt a shiver of adrenaline, a delicious sense of power coursing through her veins. She asked questions careful, measured, probing for weaknesses. Each word, each pause was deliberate. Emma's sharp mind caught discrepancies immediately. A misfiled document, a payment processing error, a vulnerability in the way the mortgage had been structured. She scribbled notes, confirming details in her mind, connecting dots only she could see. Every discovery was a silent victory, a whisper of the justice that would soon unfold. Minutes felt like hours, yet she stayed composed, asking for clarifications, testing limits, never revealing her connection to the property. She was invisible in the eyes of the bank, yet omnipotent in her knowledge, and when she finally hung up, Emma allowed herself the smallest, almost imperceptible smile. The pieces were falling into place. Her parents, so confident in their favoritism, were completely unaware of the quiet storm forming just beyond their view. Returning to the dining room, she reseated herself with her usual calm, her heart still racing but her expression serene. Conversation flowed, laughter erupted, and Lily continued to bask in the glow of parental admiration, oblivious to the scrutiny Emma had just performed. But Emma felt no pity. She only felt the anticipation of justice, the promise of revenge, and the intoxicating thrill of being finally in control. For the first time in years, Emma realized that the world no longer dictated her value. She did. And tonight she had taken the first step toward proving it. The following weeks passed in a haze of anticipation for Emma. She maintained her calm, polite demeanor around her family, never letting a hint of her plans slip. Every conversation, every smile, was a careful act of deception. Her parents continued to gush over Lily's property, unaware that the foundation of their pride was beginning to wobble beneath their very feet. Emma, however, knew that patience was now her ally. She had laid the groundwork perfectly, and all that remained was to execute. It started subtly. Emma sent discreet inquiries to the bank, following up on the discrepancies she had discovered during her clandestine phone call. Small flags began to appear in Lily's property records, delays, misfiled documents, questions that required immediate clarification. Emma didn't interfere directly. She let the system work itself, letting her family's negligence and assumptions do the rest. Every time she saw a concerned email or a missed notification pop up in her mental inventory, her chest swelled with quiet triumph. Then came the night she had anticipated. Dinner was once again a grand affair, with her parents proudly recounting every improvement Lily had planned for her property. Emma listened with a composed smile, but her mind was sharp, focused, ready. The first sign of disruption appeared in the form of a phone call her parents received from the bank, a call they could not ignore. A misfiled mortgage document and a tax discrepancy required immediate attention suddenly. The property they had boasted about was no longer untouchable. Emma watched silently as panic flickered in her parents' eyes. Their pride, so carefully cultivated over the years, faltered. Lily, too, felt the tremor of uncertainty, the first hint of vulnerability she had ever known. Emma's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. She didn't gloat, didn't revel in cruelty. She had simply positioned herself where she belonged, at the center of recognition, wielding intellect and strategy as her instruments. The conversation around the table shifted quickly. Questions, explanations, and calls had to be made. Emma offered assistance casually, providing clarity when her parents faltered. Every step she guided them through reinforced her competence, her intelligence, her worth, things that had long been ignored. For the first time, her parents saw her not as the overlooked daughter, but as someone indispensable, someone capable of control and reason. When the evening finally ended, Emma retreated to her room, allowing herself a deep, satisfied breath. She had not merely disrupted the family dynamic, she had shifted it permanently. She had proved, in a way that could not be denied, that her value was equal to, or perhaps greater than, Lily's. The humiliation she had endured for years had been transformed into empowerment, yet beneath the triumph, there was a quiet reflection. Emma recognized that revenge was a bittersweet victory. It did not erase the pain of the past, nor could it manufacture the familial love she had craved. But it gave her something equally important: control, self-respect, and recognition of her own worth. For years she had been invisible, overlooked, dismissed. Now she was seen. Now she mattered. And as Emma sat by her window, watching the city lights twinkle, she allowed herself a moment of genuine peace. She had endured betrayal and insult, had felt the sting of inequity, and yet she had emerged stronger, smarter, and unbroken. In her heart, she whispered a final truth. She had not only claimed her justice, she had claimed herself.